I'm not. Alright guys, so it's been, you know, quite a while since I've done another video, and that's because I've been busy. But I have gotten a lot of requests to do some of the specialty cords, you know, namely the Molex, and then, say it with me, Molex. And the SATA cables. So what we're gonna do is I'm first gonna do the Molex cable, and then we'll go over the power SATA cables, then the data SATA cables, and I don't know, then if you guys have any more requests, we'll show the different methods for doing those. I plan at one time going back over how to properly melt MDPC, just so you guys have a better understanding, because when I did it the first time it wasn't, you know, pretty straight on. But this is going to be just a short video, and of course every time I say that it's going to end up being a half-an-hour video, so please don't listen to me when I say that. And that's it. So we're just going to go ahead and dive right in, and I hope you enjoy. Just like the guide said, this is going to be the 4-pin Molex double wire or single wire guide. As you see in front of me, those are the normal tools I'm going to be using, and pretty much I'm not going to go through them all right now, because as I go through how to do it, I'll just go ahead and go over them all during the time. But if you went through the tool guide, most everything is on the tool guide except for the needle nose pliers, and it's optional, but I like to use it to clean up the wire, and it makes a very awesome clean look if you do it right. So I'm not going to talk forever, because I promised that I'd try to keep this under half an hour, so we're just going to jump right in. So, move these out of the way, except for what I will need, and I did lie, because I need one of these. So, I have one prepared, but I want to show you the basic breakdown of one of these cables. More so than that, I want to show you how to clean this cable off of it. Because if you're using a floppy drive, I just don't know what to say. I'm dumbfounded if you're still using one. If you're using one, follow the other methods and sleeve right on through. But if you're not, let's get rid of it. All right. So obviously, most of these are going to have most of your power supplies nowadays are going to have this cruddy, you know, OEM heat shrink and sleeving on it. Some of them have, you know, resistors, the high-end one. Capacitors I meant, and you know, some of them have like the ferrite discs. The ferrite discs can be taken off, but there's two schools to the ones that have the capacitors. You know, it's really up to you. You can do whatever you want. It's your power supply, and I'm not going to insert my opinion on that because it's so up in the air. So if you want to take out the ferrite beads, though, go ahead and take those off. But we're going to take off the sleeving right here, because you know what, I believe that we can do a better job. And that sounds really sappy and kind of wrong, kind of Willy Wonka-ish, but as you see, most of them are going to have, you know, cruddy heat shrink on top of it, and you just use your X-Acto knife, take it right off. Then it's going to have some tape most of the time, and you just cut right through that, making sure not to cut the wires. And get it all off there. Sometimes it's really taped on there. Now, some of these I've seen where they actually you know, use glue-lined heat shrink, and it's really thick glue-lined heat shrink. And you can cut this all the way with your X-Acto knife, but oh, is it so much easier just to use the scissors. It comes right off. But as I was saying, some of them have the glue-lined heat shrink, and basically it might seem like even if you cut it, it won't come off, but the cool thing about glue-lined heat shrink is if you cut a line in it, it'll break, it'll kind of like peel off. It'll just take a lot of dexterity. Oh. Hello? Yes, you do. Not a problem. You bet. Yep, not a problem, dude. Yep. Alright, bye. that is my real life. You know what? I'll just leave that in there because that is the way my life goes, and welcome to it. So, glue line, it pops right off. You can just cut it right off. It's really easy. If you really need to, you can always take your heat gun and hit it up a little bit, and that'll soften it up just enough to get off. The ferrite beads, you know, a hammer works. You know, I'm just going to say wear safety glasses. Please be careful. Don't smash your finger or get stuff in your eye. I take no responsibility if you hurt yourself. So, I'm going to take the Molex removal tool. It has two sides. Obviously, we're going to take the fatter side to remove this one because it is the female pin. And to remove these, you just push it in and you just pull it out. Now, it's way easier if you take the heat shrink off of the whole thing. Of course, before I do this, you'd want to make one of these. You know, you can enjoy my childish drawings, but this is how I know where everything's going to be. And once you do these for a while, you just kind of know where they're always going to be. But it's always good to make a little map and make sure you know where your plug's going to be and where everything needs to go on this, making sure that you look at the little ridges. So, for the sake of showing you guys this, I'm just going to rip this off of here really quick because I need to show you how to clean it up. So I'm going to do this one kind of fast. And make a big mess. Okay, now you'll notice that it connects. Let's see if I can get down here. You see that it connects, and what actually connects these to the pins is it's two wires crimped into an extra long connector pin. Now, if we try to heat shrink this, it's not going to fit in the connector the way we want it, so we got to get rid of one of those pins. But to do that, we're going to have to do it the cleanest way possible. You can recrimp this if you buy the pins, but if you're like me, I'm not going to buy the pin if I don't have to. So what we're going to do is first I separate them like this so I know which wires are what, and then I'm simply going to cut it up towards the top. Now you don't need to do this part, but it's easy and it gets everything out of the way so that you can work with it. Now, if I can get this to focus, see the two little pins right there that are squeezing in on it? The two that are right there? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my straight edge cutter, and hopefully I can get you guys a good shot of this and be able to do it. I'm going to grab the side and I'm going to bend that pin out a little bit. You see what I just did there? I'm going to do that to the other side. And I apologize if you guys can't actually see me doing this, but it's really hard to show you. So I bent both sides out, and I'm going to pull this wire up and through. Now, do you see how it's on the other side now? I do that because now all I have to do is cut. See if I can show you. Cut it up by the thing there. Oh, autofocus, how I hate you. Now you see that it's clean. There's no part of that extra wire. It looks like just one wire was crimped in there. So I'm going to take my needle nose now, and as straight as possible, I'm going to crimp one side down. Not all the way quite yet. Then I'm going to go to the other side. Try to bend it back up, because I bent that one more at an angle than I did anything. And then I'm going to crimp it back down. I'm going to make sure it's closed as much as possible without squishing it like a pancake. And then, which I kind of did a little bit. And if you accidentally squish it like a pancake, you just come back in here and straighten it out a little bit. So now you'll have one it's pretty clean. And this will fit into the connector on this end the way we want it to. If you try to do it the other way, it's not going to work. Because when we do these, we're only going to want to have this one end to have the fat connector. Now if you were, again, like I said, if you were keeping it, you wouldn't do that. But if you're going to terminate it at the end like this, you're going to want to clean it up, because that's going to produce the cleanest results. If you don't do that and you just snip it below the crimp, you're going to have a little bubble there. It's going to look nasty. Okay? Do this for cleanest work. As I showed you, it's not really hard. You just need to take a little time and not break the pin off and, you know, clean her up. So I'm not going to do this to the whole thing, otherwise we're going to be here forever. So I'm going to throw this to the side, and I'm going to show you one that I already started on. And you will be able to see what we're going to be doing. Now I'll show you what I mean about fitting in. That's going to look phenomenal, because it fits into the connector a little bit, and it's clean, it's straight, and there's no nasty bumps. So, and then I'm going to show you, everybody knows what this side looks like because I've already done the guide on how to do it. This is going to be the tricky side, and this is the side that most people have the problem with. If you can look at it from this angle, you will see that it looks nice and clean and straight. Now you will notice that this looks a little bit fatter. That is because I have 2 pieces of sleeve, 2 wires, and 1 piece of heat shrink in there. But if you look at it from the top, it looks as clean as it possibly can be. If you look at it from the side, you will notice that there's 2 wires. Now it is black, so it's kind of hard to see. I'll have to get a little bit of light on there. But you can see that it's 2 wires. Now I'll try to show you the white side, because that'll be able to show you a little bit easier. But that is as clean as you're going to be able to get that. Looks, unless you want to go ahead and take off the wire and try to do a breakdown here. But this looks awesome. I'm going to show you how to do this. It takes a little time and patience to get the heat shrink melted perfectly and get everything lined up, but it's not very hard, and we're going to go over that right now. So, I already have my wire prepared, like my other one that I showed you guys. This was the terminated end, and I went ahead and I cleaned up the pin so it's going to fit in there just right, snipped it off just like I just showed you. So first, we're going to grab our sleeving, which I will be doing in black because I just wanted the white stripe in there, and my end was a little cruddy, so I'm going to snip it off, make sure it's straight cut. Grab my lighter, make sure just to melt it just a little bit, and taper the end just like we do for the other wires, and then I'm going to measure it. Again, if you want to use a ruler, you're more than welcome to. The method I do is I straighten it out, pull the wire, and on the bottom I will pull the sleeving to tighten it a little bit, and then I will cut it, making sure that I use this as my guide. Again, I use the bottom part of the pin right there, right below the last ring. And on these ones, I do the same thing, right below that last ring. So, I will hit it up. You guys should let me know if I ever talk boring. If I'm ever like, and you put the sleeve and the wire and you melt it a little bit, please let me know. Because at that point, I need to, you know, hire a circus clown or something to keep you guys entertained. Because I don't want you falling asleep while I'm doing all this. Because I've watched tons of tutorial videos, and I tend to hate the ones with the monotone dude just talking like this, going over stuff over and over and over. It gets to be kind of boring. So, went ahead and put it on as you guys were listening to me give a speech, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and hit that up so I can taper it. I'm going to use the bottom part of the pin, pinch it, and I'm going to do kind of the same thing. But here's the thing with these, I'm not going to pull the sleeve as hard as I normally do because it's such a short length. And I don't want to overdo it and don't want to underdo it, because if I do, then it's not going to complete. And once you put in all the work on this, as I'm going to show you, it's a real bummer if you can't. You have to rip it all apart and start over. And I'm gonna try my best not to have to do that. With these double cables, you're definitely going to go through more heat shrink than you do heat shrink spots, simply because you're going to be melting this perfectly in the right way, as much as you possibly can. So we're going to fit this right over the connector like we normally do. Get it right on in there. Now you want to try your best and not taper it. If you end up tapering it too much like I just did, you know, you just get your cutter in there and you open her up a little bit. But if you're getting a really small taper, that's a good job, because that's what's going to allow that pin to be really clean. Now this is where we're going to have the most problems. You're going to want to line them up like that. You're going to want to split the wire a little bit so you have a little bit room to maneuver in there, and you're going to want to push them both up as far as you possibly can till it's all the way up and you can't possibly push it anymore. It's the furthest part as you can. And you're also going to want to try to get it as straight as you possibly can on here. So once you got that, and it takes a little bit of finessing because you got to hold it in that spot. And once you think you got that, just like that, we're going to take the lighter. Now the purpose of this, what I'm doing right now, is to make it so the heat shrink fits on a little bit. You might be thinking to yourself, well, why don't you just, you know, expand the heat shrink with this? I can do that, but I want to start doing the pre-melt because I'm going to kill the first piece of heat shrink that I put on here. It's basically going to melt right off. So I'm going to try to do some of the pre-melting right now. What I'm going to do is hold the flame on this side, and I'm going to geez, that's not even a word. I'm going to melt the tip. See if I can get a straight angle here. It's really hard. I'm going to melt this tip and then taper it down with my finger once it's melted. So I'm going to do that right now and show you what I mean. Melting a little bit and then tapering down. And I'm going to do the bottom part just like that, melting a little bit and then tapering down. Now as you can see, it pushed down and back a little bit and pushed down towards the pin. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side here as soon as I get it in place. Try not to melt my camera. Don't worry if you get the pin hot or if you melt the plastic a little bit, it's fine. Do the other side a little bit more because I'm not very happy with it. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing we just did 2 seconds ago. We're going to push it all the way up. It should be a little bit easier to keep it in place. And now we're going to put our piece of heat shrink on there. Now you will still notice that it's a little bit hard. If you absolutely can't get your piece of heat shrink on there, then you might want to consider melting a little bit more, which I'm going to do. Or you can just expand it a little bit before you do this. But a pretty good judgment for doing this is if you don't have to. Here, I gotta get my thumb uncramped there. A good judgment for if you know that you've pre-melted enough is if you get your piece of heat shrink on there with not too much trouble. It's gonna be tight, but it won't be too crazy. So, obviously, you're wondering, why didn't I use the Lutro sleeving tool? The reason I didn't is because this is already pushed up as far as it possibly can go, and that is where it needs to be. So we're going to push this down. Now if I can show you, actually I'm going to show you on this other one here. You will notice that there is a notch right there. Just like the other pin, but this one is an actual notch into the round part of the pin, which is right there. That is where we're going to be shrinking this heat shrink. Now remember, this first piece doesn't matter so much because we're going to melt the crud out of it, and it's going to melt the sleeve underneath. But we still got to be careful with this because we don't want to actually melt this sleeve. We just want to melt the sleeve onto the connector and form it with our heat gun. This is by far the hardest part of this, and I'm going to start showing you kind of what I do. I will hit up from the top here and move my way down. If you don't have a reducer for your heat gun, you need to go get one. Okay, out of principle, I will move my heat shrink up a little bit to where it's supposed to be, and you'll notice this gigantic bump. Just did it a little bit so I could get that where I needed it to go, which was right up to the connector, and you'll notice this gigantic bump right there. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink that around it. Now, if you did everything right, this is what you'll end up with. It'll be straight and it'll go all the way around, and you'll notice you have a huge bump. Now what we're gonna do, see if I can get this to focus. Come on, camera. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna melt, oh boy, here we go, camera time. We're gonna melt this around and we're gonna make it taper. Now all I'm gonna be doing to do this, if I can get it in there, is holding the wire and melting around. Now you will see it actually taper a little bit. Like I said, don't worry if you melt your heat shrink, because more than most likely it's going to come off anyway. If it pops right off, you just throw another piece on there. And that's pretty good for me. Now you'll notice, if we can get this to focus on it, that it is now tapered. There's no gigantic bump. Oh, come on, camera. Actually, that was my hand. There's no big bump around it. It is actually, oh, there's some light. It is actually tapered all the way around. Now this is very much an art. It'll take a while for you to get her down. All you need to remember is that if you have a reducer, always keep it close and always keep this up here, not down here. The further down you go, the more you risk actually melting your sleeve. That takes a little time and patience to get down, but it's not hard. And then you just roll it around, keeping this close and up towards the top. So we're just going to let that cool down. As normal, we would blow on it to cool her down a little bit. And we're just going to shrink the rest of the parts of this. And it's pretty straightforward. We do know that the Molex pins are already right where we want them to be shrunk, so that's not all the way up yet. So we're going to bring it up just a little bit more until it's right up against. Well, can't really do that with one hand. I will sure try though. There we go. It is right up against the last ring. So again, we're just going to grab our heat shrink. Let me see if I can switch hands here. And grab the heat gun again. Twist it around. Of course, I lost my spot on there a little bit. There we go. And remember the little notch that we go up to? Now you'll notice that we can't really get all the way up to that notch very well, but what we can do is shrink the first part of our shrink so that we can align it, and then we push it right up to the point where we want it, and then we just sweep the gun down. So and roll it around so you can taper it off a little bit. Perfect. Oh, turn it back on. I didn't mean to do that. And I'll blow out a little bit to cool her down. Awesome. So now we're going to do our other end. And again, we're just running our finger all the way down. Now this is, again, not again, but this is the pin where we would bust out our awesome Lutro Customs sleeving tool and drop it. We're going to bust it out here. Again, the way you use the tool is you pop it into the same connector. It's basically a measuring tool, and you bring the sleeve right up to the bottom of the tool. Let go, grab your heat shrink, put it right on there. And you know, the same thing that we did for the other one to shrink it, so that we can push it right up to the connector. It's like that. And then we will go ahead and shrink the rest of it. Now here's the deal. Do you see that bottom there? See where it's all rough? We're going to melt that just like we melted the other one. We're going to take our gun. We're going to go around the connector until that dumb little ridge is gone. Now this is going to fit into that connector just fine. It'll slide right in. Of course, it is not going to slide right into the connector because it is super hot, and it's going to cool down by the time we get to it. So this is where it gets interesting. We are going to put this fat end into here. So you'll notice that all my wires right now are vertical. The actual shrink and the way I'm putting it in the connector is so that it's up and down, not sideways. If you try to go sideways, there's not enough room on here to do that. So you have to go up and down. Grabbing the pin. Again, if you close this down really well, you're going to want to take the little wings on here. See that right there? Pop them out a little bit. And do it to this one over here. And do that to all of these really, so that they're popped out. See if I can get that to right there. Look at my hairy knuckles. So we're going to heat the fat end, this one right here, back up. It's going to take a little bit of heat to cool her down, or the opposite of that, heat her up. And we'll make sure the wires are positioned the way we want, and we will put it right on in there. And these ones you hear a click. Now you'll notice that it's off from the rest of them. You didn't do anything wrong. That's perfectly normal. Now we're going to actually put the heat shrink that we want on there, and you'll realize why we're doing a separate one. And that is the wrong tool. Nobody saw that. Actually, everybody's going to see that. It's going to be awesome. Now you'll notice, see how it ripped a little bit there? That's because we get that there. See how it ripped a little bit there? You can see the yellow wire underneath. That is because we heated it to Kingdom Come, and it got really thin because it melted. So we're going to pop it off, And I will be absolutely honest with you, sometimes when I'm doing this part right here, to get her straight with the rest of them, it takes me a few pieces. But if you have some... Now here's the glory of all this. You will notice now that the wire is melted to the connector. It looks kind of ugly, but you don't have to worry about that because you won't see it once there's heat shrink on it. But it is now on there. It's not going anywhere. It's a strong bond because it's melted to the bottom plastic, which is what we wanted to do. So I'm going to grab a piece of heat shrink. I'm going to put it on there. And now we're going to shrink that thing up. Using the same method, doing a little bit on the bottom, positioning it up on the pin. Now this one, you don't have to melt a lot because you already did the melting with the other piece of heat shrink. Make sure that your wires are facing the right way. And it'll click into place if everything goes as planned. Oh, I'm close. Not exactly where I want to be, but it's close enough. I mean, I don't ever like saying close enough, but for you guys that are watching, you really can't get that high of definition. I would probably redo it, but for the sake of time on this guide, that's what you get. It looks awesome, looks straightforward, looks clean, and ooh, look at that, it is actually a double pin. And you'll notice that the sleeve is already up to the front. You might see a little bit of a bubble right there, but we're going to take care of that when we do the finishing. So we're going to do the other cable and we're going to finish it off. So again, with all of these, we're going to heat it up a little bit. Ha! It is heated up. I was almost about to grab another connector. That is another dumb thing that nobody saw, okay? Now this is the same as all of the other ones. We're just going to pop it right in there and boom. You'll see a little bit of the sleeving went inside of here, but it is nice and straight. And you will love that connector because it looks awesome. So we're going to finish her off with the last cable down here. Now unfortunately when you do a 4-pin to the power supply side, it's not going to look pretty because you got to move it around and try to do it as best as you can. But that's the nature of the cord. So with our heated piece, we're going to make sure that it's semi-warm as much as possible, and we're going to be pinching it pretty hard down here to make sure that once you heat it up, it doesn't come loose off of where it's supposed to go. Now if everything goes right, it will slide right into the connector some. If we can get it to focus here, it will slide right into the connector some, and all of your heat shrink will be straight. And it will look awesome because it gives you that nice clean look with the heat shrink in it a little bit. So, straighten out our cord. Now, you're going to have to train your cords. This is how I train them. I bend them a little bit at different spots. Try to get them straight. You know, you can grab zip ties and get them the way you want. But that is your Molex cord. Now, personally, on a preference level for myself, what I really like doing is if you have the opportunity to where you only need one of these, or even if you just need 2 of them, if you can, if your power supply has 2 of these, 2 places to put a Molex cable, or if your power supply has these not modular but already inside of it, if it has 2 rails coming out, so 2 of these coming out of it, what I like to do is clean it up so that you only have this on the end. So the cord would basically look like this. It would just have this end and this end, because this gives you the cleanest result. This you can make look good with how I just showed you. If you absolutely have to do it, you can. But I will say, if you can at all possible, just do 2 cords with 2 of these. I don't know many systems that need too many of these, unless you're trying to, light up a city block with a bunch of LEDs and whatnot. But that's it, guys. This is as simple as it possibly can get. The hardest part, like I said, is learning how to melt this properly. It's going to take some time. You're going to mess up a couple of these. The fact that I was able to get that close on the first one means nothing. Even after doing it for a while and doing it all the time, it's really hard. I'll have to re-shrink it a few times just to make sure I get it right. So as I said, I was trying to do a short one, but I ended up doing 34 minutes again, which most of you guys aren't surprised, and really I'm not either. So I'm really glad that you guys still choose to join me. I've had an incredible response from you guys. I have a decent amount, I've never suspected that many people would subscribe to me on YouTube. And I guess a pitch for myself is, if you guys want to subscribe, please do. It gives me encouragement to know that you guys actually want to see these and they're helpful. Please post on the thread. Let me know questions. If you're ever stuck anywhere, I will do everything I can to explain it as much as I can. My heart behind this whole thing is to help you guys enjoy sleeving and get out there and start your own projects. It's not hard. It takes time. I hope to take all the mystery out of it, because really it's not a mystery. It's just knowing how to do it. And if you have the patience, you have the right tools, and you have the knowledge, anybody can do it. So that's all I got. Thanks for joining. So that was the Molex connector guide. As you can see, there's not too many options. It's pretty straightforward. The biggest part is you're just gonna have to pay attention to detail. If any of you guys have any questions on anything, please remember that you can always ask me. Let me know if you need any help with anything, and I'd be more than glad to help you. And now for a treat, we're gonna get my wife to say Molex. Say Molex!
Molex.
Molex! Peace.